The voicemail came in at 6:37 in the morning. I know because I was staring at the clock on my phone when I played it back, sitting on the edge of my bed in boxers and an old flannel shirt that had seen better decades. "Hey, Dad, it's me. Listen, I'm gonna swing by this afternoon. Need to check out your car, the old Chevy. Just want to make sure everything's safe. You've been driving it a lot lately and I worry. See you around 2. My wife Janet rolled over and squinted at me through the morning light filtering through our bedroom curtains. "What's he want now?" she asked. "Says he wants to check my car." "Since when does Derek care about your car?" "Since never." I'd owned that 1998 Chevy Silverado for 26 years, bought it used back when Derek was still in diapers. The thing ran like a dream because I actually knew how to maintain it. I was a mechanic for 18 years before I moved into safety inspection work. My son knew I could rebuild an engine blindfolded. Him offering to check my vehicle was like a fish offering to teach a bear how to swim, but I said okay on the voicemail he'd left. I always said okay. Derek showed up at 2:15, driving his Tesla Model S. He climbed out wearing designer jeans and a polo shirt that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. His hair was gelled back in that startup bro style that made every man under 35 look like they sold crypto or wellness supplements. "Hey, Pops," he said, flashing that smile he'd inherited from Janet's side of the family. All teeth, no warmth. "Derek, so where's the truck?" I pointed to the garage. He walked past me without waiting, his shoes, some kind of Italian leather, clicking on the concrete driveway. I followed him into the garage where my Silverado sat like a loyal dog that had been waiting all day for attention. "Pop the hood?" he asked. I did. He leaned in, made a show of looking around, touched a few hoses, nodded like he understood what he was seeing. He didn't. I could tell by the way his eyes glazed over after 5 seconds. This wasn't about the engine. "Looks good up here," he said. "Mind if I check underneath? Suspension, frame, all that." "Knock yourself out." He grabbed a flashlight from his car, because of course he came prepared, and got down on his back, sliding under the truck. I stood there watching his expensive shoes stick out from under my vehicle, listening to him shuffle around down there. He was under there for almost 10 minutes, way too long for a casual inspection. When he finally emerged, there was dust on his polo and a smudge of grease on his cheek. He smiled again. "Everything looks solid, Dad. You're good to go. Appreciate you checking." "Anytime. Hey, you should come by the office sometime. See what we're building. It's exciting stuff." "Sure thing." He left the same way he came in. Silent Tesla. Wave through the window. Gone. Janet appeared in the garage doorway as his taillights disappeared down the street. "What was that about?" she asked. "No idea. You're not curious?" "I'm something." That evening, after dinner, leftover meatloaf and green beans that Janet reheated in our ancient microwave. I went back to the garage. I grabbed my own flashlight and my rolling mechanics creeper, the one with the padded headrest that had a permanent impression of my skull in it. I rolled myself under that truck like I'd done 10,000 times before. Took me less than 2 minutes to find it. A small black box, maybe the size of a deck of cards, was bolted to the inside of the frame rail. Fresh bolts. They still had that bright silver shine that comes before rust and road grime have had time to do their work. The device had a small LED light that blinked green every few seconds. A tracker. My son had put a tracking device on my truck. I didn't move for a while. Just lay there on that creeper, staring up at that little black box, watching it blink, blink, blink. Like a heartbeat. Like something alive. I heard Janet's footsteps on the garage floor. "You coming in?" she called. "There's coffee." "In a minute." Her footsteps stopped. Then I heard her walk closer. Then I felt her crouch down beside the creeper. "What did you find?" "Come look." She got down on her hands and knees, something she hated doing because of her bad hip, and peered under the truck where I was pointing. "Is that—" "Yeah." He put a tracker on your car. Yeah. She was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up, grunting with the effort, and I heard her walk to her workbench where she kept her gardening tools. She came back and crouched down again. You gonna ask him about it? No. You gonna take it off? Yeah. Then what? I looked at her. Even upside down from my angle on the creeper, I could see that look in her eyes. That look she got when she was working through a problem. Janet had been an engineer before she retired. She thought in systems and sequences. She was 3 steps ahead before most people finished step 1. I don't know yet, I said. Well, figure it out fast, because if our son is tracking you, he's got a reason, and I'm betting it's not a good one. I rolled out from under the truck and sat up. My knees popped. Everything popped these days. 52 years old, and my body sounded like bubble wrap every time I moved. I grabbed my socket set and went back under. Took me another 5 minutes to remove the bolts and pull the device free. It was lighter than I expected. The LED kept blinking even after I disconnected it. Battery powered. I brought it into the house and set it on the kitchen table under the overhead light. Janet put on her reading glasses and picked it up, turning it over in her hands like an archaeologist examining a suspicious artifact. This is commercial grade, she said, not something you buy at Best Buy. How do you know? Because I'm not an idiot. See this? She pointed to a small logo on the back. Track Secure. That's a professional fleet management company. They sell to businesses, trucking companies, delivery services, people who need to monitor vehicles for insurance or logistics. So how'd Derek get one? Good question. She grabbed her laptop from the counter and typed in the company name. Clicked around for a minute. Then she stopped and looked at me over the top of her glasses. This particular model is designed for asset tracking. They market it to companies that need to monitor expensive equipment or vehicles. It's also popular with private investigators and... She paused. Family members who want to monitor elderly relatives. I'm 52. They consider that elderly adjacent in tech years. I picked up the device again and felt the weight of it, the weight of what it meant. My son thought I needed monitoring, or he wanted to know where I was going, or he wanted to make sure I wasn't going somewhere. But where would I go that mattered to him? I'd retired from the inspection job 2 years ago. I didn't have much going on. I went to the hardware store sometimes, the diner on Wednesday mornings for coffee with a couple of old work friends, the grocery store with Janet, the VA clinic once a month for a checkup. My life wasn't interesting enough to track. Unless interesting wasn't the point. What are you thinking? Janet asked. I'm thinking our son is up to something. Obviously. And I'm thinking I want to know what before I confront him about it. She nodded slowly. So, what's the play? I looked at the tracker again, that little blinking light. Then I looked at Janet. You still have that list of addresses for those Christmas cards you never sent? The international ones? Yeah. I think so. Why? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Because I'm gonna mail this thing to Canada. Janet stared at me for a second. Then she started laughing. Not a polite chuckle. A full, deep laugh that came from her belly. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in years. Oh, honey, she said, wiping her eyes. You're gonna give that boy a heart attack. That's the idea. She found the address list in her desk drawer. Random people we'd met on a cruise to Alaska 7 years ago. A couple from Vancouver who'd sat at our dinner table one night and talked about their bed and breakfast. We'd exchanged addresses, promised to stay in touch. Never did. Perfect. I found a padded envelope in the junk drawer, sealed the tracker inside, and wrote out the address in my neatest handwriting, added enough stamps to get it across the border, dropped it in the mailbox at the corner that night around 10 p.m. Then I went home and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I waited. Derek didn't call, didn't text. I went about my day like normal, fixed a leaky faucet in the bathroom, helped Janet reorganize the garage, made sandwiches for lunch. Around 3 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Hello? Is this, The voice hesitated. Male, maybe mid-30s. Is this the owner of a track-secure device, serial number TS4471B? Who's asking? This is Constable Matthews with the Canada Border Services Agency. We've detected your tracking device crossing the border at the Pacific Highway, crossing approximately 4 hours ago. The device is currently moving north on Highway 99 toward Vancouver. Can you confirm why you're tracking someone in Canada? I let the silence hang there for a second. 2 seconds. 3. Sir, the constable said, I'm not tracking anyone. But this is your device? Someone put it on my vehicle without my knowledge. I found it and mailed it away. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear him breathing, hear papers shuffling. You mailed a GPS tracker to Canada. That's right. Sir, that's very unusual. So is your son putting a tracker on your truck? Your son? Long story. Sir, I'm going to need you to provide some information for our report. This device is registered to a Derek Brennan. Is that your son? I felt something cold slide down my spine. Yeah, that's him. And you're saying he placed this device on your vehicle without your consent. That's exactly what I'm saying. More paper shuffling, a keyboard clicking in the background. Mr. Brennan, the father, I'm going to be honest with you, this is weird. We don't usually deal with this kind of thing. Most trackers we find are either smuggling operations or domestic surveillance cases. But a father finding his son's tracker and mailing it to a random address in another country, that's a new one. Glad I could help you add to your case files. He actually chuckled at that. Look, I'm going to file this as a resolved domestic matter. The device is going to reach the address in Vancouver and probably confuse the hell out of whoever lives there, but that's not our problem anymore. But sir? Yeah? If your son put a tracker on your vehicle, you might want to figure out why. People don't usually do that without a reason. I'm working on it. Good luck. He hung up. Janet walked in from the backyard where she'd been pulling weeds from her vegetable garden. She took one look at my face and stopped. What happened? Canadian Border Patrol called. You're kidding. Derek registered the tracker under his own name. She pulled out a chair and sat down slowly. That's either incredibly stupid or incredibly arrogant. Maybe both. What did you tell them? The truth. She nodded, stood up, walked to the sink and poured herself a glass of water, drank it in 3 long swallows, set the glass down with more force than necessary. So what now? She asked. I thought about it. Thought about my son, 27 years old, smart, ambitious, working at some automotive tech startup downtown. Thought about the fact that he'd driven all the way to our house to plant a tracking device on my truck. Thought about the fact that he'd done it with a smile on his face and grease on his cheek. Now, I said, I start paying attention. Before we continue, hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We'd love to get to know our audience better. The invitation came 3 days later. Email from Derek with the subject line, Lunch at the office. You both should come. Janet read it over my shoulder while I sat at the computer in our small home office. Really just a converted closet with a desk and a chair that squeaked. He's putting on a show, she said. Probably. You want to go? Yeah, I do. Me too. The startup was in downtown Seattle, one of those renovated warehouse buildings with exposed brick and steel beams and floor-to-ceiling windows that let in too much light. The kind of place where everyone wore hoodies and drank kombucha and talked about disrupting industries I'd never heard of. We showed up on Thursday at noon. Derek met us in the lobby wearing dark jeans and a button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Very casual, very tech. Mom, Dad, thanks for coming. Janet gave him a hug that looked warm, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, but not aggressive. practice grip, interview grip. Place looks nice, I said, glancing around at the industrial chic lobby with its concrete floors and modern art that probably cost more than our mortgage. Wait till you see the office space. Come on. He led us to an elevator that was all glass and steel. We rode up to the third floor in silence, except for the gentle hum of the motor. The doors opened onto an open floor plan that stretched out like a basketball court. Rows of desks with multiple monitors, people typing, phones ringing, energy. And standing near the kitchen area, talking to a group of young employees, was Derek's girlfriend, Melissa. She saw us, and her face did that thing where it arranged itself into something pleasant, but didn't quite reach her eyes. "Janet? Mr. Brennan? So nice to see you." She was 26, blonde, had that specific kind of attractiveness that came from money and maintenance. Yoga pants that cost $200, nails done, skin that glowed with whatever expensive products rich women used. "Melissa," Janet said with a smile that matched the temperature in the room. Derek jumped in before the silence could get awkward. "Let me show you around. This is our main work area. We've got about 30 employees now, growing every month." He walked us through the space, pointing out different departments: engineering, marketing, sales. Everyone was young, everyone looked happy, or at least performed happiness well enough to pass. We ended up in a conference room with a view of the city. Lunch was catered, sandwiches and salads from some place that probably had artisan in the name. We sat down at a table that could have seated 12 but held only 4. Derek launched into his pitch almost immediately. "So, Dad, I wanted you to see what we're building here. You know I've always been interested in automotive tech. Well, we've developed a system that helps fleet managers track vehicle maintenance in real time, prevents breakdowns, saves companies millions." "Tracking systems," I said. "Exactly. GPS integration, diagnostic monitoring, the whole package." "Interesting." Melissa leaned forward, her voice bright and sharp. "Derek's been working so hard on this, day and night. It's really inspiring." "I bet," Janet said, "and it's starting to pay off. We just secured our Series A funding, $7 million. She said it like she expected us to applaud. Janet took a bite of her sandwich instead. I sipped my water. Derek cleared his throat. "The thing is, we're at a growth stage now where we need to start thinking about expansion, real estate, office space. We're looking at properties." "Sounds expensive," I said. "It is. But we've got investors, we've got momentum, and—" He glanced at Melissa. "We've got some opportunities that could really accelerate things." The way he said opportunities made something in my chest tighten. "What kind of opportunities?" Janet asked. "There's a property developer who's interested in partnering with us, wants to build a tech campus. We'd be the anchor tenant, but it requires some significant commitments." "Financial commitments," I said, "among other things." We ate in silence for a minute. Then Melissa's phone buzzed. She looked at it and smiled. "Oh, that's Kelly. I have to take this. Be right back." She stepped out of the conference room, phone already pressed to her ear. Through the glass walls, I could see her pacing, gesturing, laughing. Derek watched her go with something like pride. "She's been amazing through all this," he said. "Really supportive." "Mm-hmm," Janet said. "You don't like her." "I didn't say that." "You don't have to." Janet set down her sandwich and looked at her son with that engineer's gaze, the one that could calculate load-bearing capacity and stress points in about 3 seconds. "I think she's very focused on your success," Janet said. "Whether that's good for you or good for her, I'm still figuring out." "Mom, Derek, I've known you since you were born. I know when someone's pushing you, and I know when you're letting yourself be pushed. Right now, I'm seeing both." The energy in the room shifted. Derek's jaw tightened. "I'm not being pushed. I'm building something. And yeah, it's hard. And yeah, sometimes I need support. But that's what partners do. They support each other." "Okay," Janet said. Okay. We finished lunch with small talk about the weather and traffic and the new restaurant that opened on Capitol Hill. Melissa came back and talked about a friend's wedding and how expensive weddings were these days, and how she couldn't wait to have her own someday. She looked at Derek when she said it. He shifted in his seat. When we left, Derek walked us to the elevator. Thanks for coming, he said. I know it's a schlep into the city. It's not that far, I said. Still, I appreciate it. And hey, I want to talk to you soon about some business stuff, family stuff, just some paperwork things. What kind of paperwork? Nothing urgent, just some property documents. I'll explain later. The elevator arrived. We stepped in. Drive safe, Derek said as the doors closed. We drove home in silence for the first 10 minutes. Then Janet turned to me. He wants something. I know. Something to do with property. Yeah. Your dad's land. I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. My father had owned 40 acres outside Tacoma. Died 6 years ago and left it to me. It wasn't much. Some woods, a creek, an old barn that was more rust than structure. But it was mine. Paid off. Clear title. He wouldn't, I said. He would. That land's been in our family for... He would, Janet said again. And I'm betting that property developer he mentioned wants to build something on it. And I'm betting Derek promised him he could make it happen. That's why he put the tracker on my truck. He's watching you. Making sure you're not doing anything with the land. Making sure you're... predictable. I felt something dark settle in my chest. Something cold and heavy. What did Melissa say when she was on the phone? I asked. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught a few bits. She was talking to someone named Kelly, mentioned you, said something like, yeah, he's still in the same old truck wearing the same old clothes. It's kind of sad, honestly. She said that. She did. In the hallway, where we could hear. I don't think she cared. I drove for another few minutes, processing. Then I pulled over into a gas station parking lot and put the truck in park. Janet looked at me. What are you doing? Making a decision. About? About whether I'm going to let them do this to me. And? I looked at my wife, this woman who'd stood by me for 28 years, who'd raised our son with me, who'd believed in me when I transitioned from mechanic to inspector, who'd listened to me complain about back pain and bad coffee and office politics, who'd never once made me feel small. I'm not, I said. Good. But I'm not going to confront him either, not yet. What then? I'm going to figure out exactly what he's planning, and then I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen. Janet smiled, that dangerous smile. Now you're talking. That night I went down to the basement. We didn't use it much, just storage for Christmas decorations and old furniture and boxes of stuff we'd been meaning to sort through for years. But in the back corner, behind a stack of plastic bins, was my old workbench from the garage at our previous house. I pulled it out into the open space and wiped off the dust. Turned on the overhead fluorescent light that buzzed and flickered before settling into a harsh white glow. Then I started gathering tools. Socket wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers, wire cutters, a voltmeter, all the instruments of my old trade. I laid them out on the workbench in neat rows, organized by size and function. Janet came downstairs around 10 p.m. with a beer for me and a glass of wine for her. What are you doing? She asked. Preparing. For what? For whatever comes next. She sat on an old stool and watched me work. I started sketching out a plan on a legal pad. Not a detailed plan. Just notes, ideas, possibilities. You remember that time Derek was 12 and he cheated on his math test? I asked. I remember. You caught him because you noticed his answers were too perfect, too consistent. You said nobody gets every problem right unless they copied the answer key. He tried to lie his way out of it. And you made him confess by showing him the statistical probability of his score. Broke it down mathematically. He couldn't argue with the numbers. Janet smiled at the memory. He cried for an hour. He learned a lesson that day. Did he? I stopped sketching and looked at her. I thought he did. I thought we taught him that honesty mattered, that family mattered, that you don't betray the people who love you. And now? Now I'm not sure what we taught him. We sat there in that basement, surrounded by forgotten things and fluorescent light, and I felt something shift inside me. Something fundamental, like a gear clicking into a new position. I'd spent my whole life being the good guy, the reliable guy, the guy who showed up on time and did the job right and didn't complain, the guy who raised his son and loved his wife and paid his taxes and fixed his neighbors' cars for free. And my son had put a tracking device on my truck. Janet? Yeah? If I do this, if I really go after him, it's going to get ugly. I know. You okay with that? She finished her wine in one long swallow and set the glass down on the workbench with a sharp clink. Honey, she said, I've been waiting for you to show some teeth for 20 years. Don't stop now. I smiled, nodded, went back to my notes. The plan was forming. Slowly, carefully, like building an engine from scratch. Every part had to fit. Every connection had to be solid. Derek wanted to track me? Fine. I'd give him something to track. He wanted to manipulate me? Fine. I'd let him think it was working. He wanted my land? Fine. We'd see about that. I worked in that basement until 3 a.m, Janet eventually heading upstairs to bed around midnight. When I finally turned off the light and climbed the stairs, my back aching and my eyes burning, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The plan started small, a seed that would grow into something devastating. I called Robert Kemp, the lawyer, and told him to accelerate the trust paperwork. Have it ready in 3 days, not 2 weeks. He asked why the rush. I told him I'd explain later. Then I called the assessor's office in Pierce County and requested a formal appraisal of the property. Not a quick estimate. A full appraisal by a licensed professional. They said it would take 2 weeks. I paid extra to get it done in 5 days. Janet, meanwhile, compiled everything we had on Meridian Heights and Vincent Pirelli into a dossier. Financial records, news articles, court documents. She organized it like a prosecutor building a case, because that's essentially what we were doing. We need to show Derek who he's really working with, she said, not by telling him, by making him discover it himself. How? By creating a situation where he has to investigate them, where he starts asking questions they don't want to answer. I'm listening. She pulled out a timeline she'd been working on. Pirelli's current investigation, the one about the AI logistics company. I've been reading the court documents. They're public record. And there's something interesting. What? The investors who are suing him claim he showed them demo software that didn't actually exist, that he faked the AI capabilities, that he essentially sold them vaporware. That's fraud. That's fraud. But here's the kicker. The technology he claimed to have? It's similar to what Derek's company is building. Fleet management, GPS tracking, route optimization. I saw where she was going. You think Pirelli is using Derek's actual technology to fulfill promises from his old company? I think it's possible, and if it's true, it means Derek is unknowingly part of a scheme to defraud investors. That would destroy him. It would. We need proof. We need Derek to find the proof. If we hand it to him, he'll dismiss it. But if he discovers it on his own, he can't ignore it. We spent the rest of the day crafting a careful trail of breadcrumbs. Janet found an old article about Pirelli's company buried in a tech blog. She sent it to Derek from an anonymous email account with just one line. Thought you should know who you're working with. Then we waited. Derek called that evening. His voice was tight but controlled. Did you send me something? Send you what? An email about Vince. I don't even know your work email. Someone sent me an article about his old company. And it's concerning, but I'm sure there's an explanation. Did you ask him? Not yet. Why not? Because I want to do more research first. Make sure I have the full picture before I confront him with accusations. I smiled. He was already doing exactly what we wanted. That's smart, I said. Always good to know who you're in business with. I know who I'm in business with. Do you? He hung up. Over the next 3 days, Janet sent 2 more anonymous emails. Each one contained a piece of information that raised more questions. A financial document showing Pirelli's previous company burning through investor money faster than projected. A deposition transcript where he admitted to optimistic projections about technology capabilities. Nothing definitive. Nothing that proved fraud. Just enough to make Derek paranoid. And it worked. On the 4th day, Derek showed up at our house again. But this time he wasn't angry. He was shaken. "Can I talk to you?" he asked. "Both of you." We sat in the living room. He looked like he hadn't slept. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes had dark circles under them. "I've been looking into Vince," he said. "Really looking. And I'm finding some things that don't add up." "Like what?" Janet asked. "Like the technology our company is developing. The core algorithms. I thought we built them from scratch. But there are similarities to what his old company claimed to have, down to specific terminology and process flows." "That's concerning," I said. "It's more than concerning. If he's using our work to cover up fraud from his previous company, that makes us liable. Our investors could sue. The investigation could expand to include us." "Have you talked to him about it?" "I tried. He got defensive, said I was being paranoid, said the similarities were coincidental. But Dad, I've been in tech long enough to know there's no such thing as that kind of coincidence." "So what are you going to do?" He ran his hands through his hair. "I don't know. If I push too hard, I could destroy the company. We're so close to closing major deals. The Meridian Heights partnership. New investors. If I blow this up now..." "You lose everything," Janet said. "Yeah. But if you don't blow it up and it comes out later, you lose everything anyway. Plus your reputation. Plus possibly your freedom if there are criminal charges." He looked at her with something like desperation. "What would you do?" "I'd get out, immediately. Cut ties with Pirelli. Distance yourself from anything questionable. And I'd document everything so if it goes bad, you can prove you weren't part of it." "That's easy to say." "It's the right thing to say." Derek stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the street. "I can't just walk away. I have stock options, contracts, employees who depend on me. And a business partner who's potentially a criminal," I said. He turned back to face us. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me struggle, watching everything fall apart." "No," I said. And I meant it. Looking at my son standing there, terrified and lost, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, but maybe the beginning of understanding. I'm not enjoying it. But I'm also not going to lie to you and say everything's fine when it's not. "What about the property?" he asked. "Are you still considering the offer?" "No." "No?" "I signed the trust documents yesterday. The land is locked up. Can't be sold without approval from both me and Janet and an independent trustee. It would take months to unwind, even if we wanted to." His face went pale. "You did that on purpose." "I did. To sabotage me. To protect myself. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing." He walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the knob. "Melissa's leaving me," he said quietly. Janet and I exchanged glances. "What?" Janet asked. She found out about the Meridian deal falling through, found out about the issues with Vince, and she decided she didn't want to be with someone whose career was imploding. "I'm sorry," Janet said. "Are you, though? You never liked her." "No, I didn't. But I didn't want you to get hurt." He laughed, that same bitter laugh from before. "Too late for that." He left, quietly this time. No slammed door, just a soft click and silence. Janet looked at me. "We broke him," she said. "He broke himself. We just stopped enabling it." "That feels like semantics." "Maybe, But sitting there in the quiet house, I wondered if she was right, if we'd gone too far, if protecting ourselves had turned into something darker. Then I remembered the tracker, remembered Derek standing in our garage with grease on his cheek and lies in his smile, remembered him calling our life pathetic. No, we hadn't gone too far, not yet. The implosion happened faster than I expected. 2 days after Derek's visit, the news broke. A tech industry blog ran a story. Tech Track Solutions under investigation for possible technology misappropriation. The article was carefully worded, lots of alleged and according to sources, but the damage was done. It outlined the similarities between Derek's company and Pirelli's failed venture. It quoted anonymous investors expressing concern. It mentioned the ongoing fraud investigation. Derek's company was toast. Within hours, their investors started pulling out. Phone calls, emails, lawyers, everyone scrambling to distance themselves before the scandal got worse. Melissa left too. She didn't just break up with Derek. She took to social media to make sure everyone knew she'd left before things got really bad. Self-preservation dressed up as moral clarity. Derek called me from a number I didn't recognize. Turned out his phone had been shut off when the company accounts froze. "Did you do this?" he asked. His voice was hollow. "Do what?" "The article, the investigation, all of it." "No. I don't believe you." "I didn't. But Derek, I'm also not surprised it happened. You were building on a foundation of lies. Eventually, that foundation crumbles. Spare me the wisdom. I'm losing everything, my company, my career, my relationship, everything I worked for is gone. I'm sorry that happened." "No, you're not." He was right. I wasn't. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. "I don't know. Vince is talking about lawsuits, trying to blame me for everything, says I knew about the technology issues and didn't tell him. Complete bullshit, but his lawyers are already drafting papers." "Get your own lawyer." "With what money?" "The company accounts are frozen. My personal accounts are basically empty because I'd been putting everything into the business." "I can't help you there." "I know. I'm not asking. I'm just telling you what you've accomplished. You wanted to see me fail. Congratulations. Mission accomplished." "Derek?" He hung up. Janet was sitting next to me. She'd heard the whole conversation on speaker. "He sounds broken," she said. "Good. Is it? Is it good?" I looked at her. "You having second thoughts?" "I'm having complicated thoughts. We set out to protect ourselves, to make sure he couldn't manipulate us or take advantage of us. We did that. But now we're watching him lose everything, and I'm trying to figure out how I feel about it." "How do you feel?" "Satisfied and guilty in equal measure." "That's fair." We sat in silence for a while. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Mr. Brennan, this is Richard Halloway from Meridian Heights Development." The developer, the man behind the whole scheme. "What can I do for you?" I asked. "I understand you've made your property unavailable for sale." "That's correct. I'd like to discuss alternatives, perhaps a long-term lease arrangement, or a profit-sharing model where you maintain ownership, but we develop the land." "Not interested." "Mr. Brennan, I think there's been some miscommunication. Your son led us to believe this was a done deal. We've invested significant time and resources based on that representation." "That's between you and my son." "Actually, it's between you and your son. He made promises on your behalf, promises that created legitimate business expectations. We could pursue legal action for promissory estoppel." I laughed, actually laughed. "Good luck with that. I never made any promises. I never signed anything. You can't sue someone for not selling their own property. We can sue for damages based on reliance on false representations. You can try, but you won't win. And in the process, you'll just make the investigation into your company worse. Because I'm guessing the authorities would be very interested in how you pressure landowners to sell." Silence on the other end. Then, "You're making a mistake." "No, my son made the mistake. I'm just cleaning it up." He hung up. Janet raised her eyebrows. That was aggressive. He was bluffing. They've got nothing. Are you sure? Positive. Robert confirmed it. Without my signature or consent, they can't claim any kind of agreement. Derek might have promised them something, but Derek didn't have the authority to promise anything. So Derek's going to take the fall for the whole thing. Derek already took the fall. This is just the aftershock. That night, I got an email from Derek. Long, rambling, angry. It detailed everything he thought I'd done wrong, every way I'd failed him as a father, every opportunity I'd missed to support him. He said I was jealous of his success, that I'd sabotaged him because I couldn't stand to see him exceed my accomplishments, that I was a bitter old man taking out my failures on my son. Janet read it over my shoulder. That's harsh, she said. It's projection. He's lashing out because he can't accept responsibility. Maybe. Or maybe there's some truth in it. I looked at her. You think I'm jealous? No. But I think he believes you are. And belief is powerful. It shapes how we see everything else. So, what do I do? Apologize for protecting myself? No. But maybe you reach out. Let him know you're not the enemy. I'm not the enemy, but I'm also not his ally. Not after what he did. Fair enough. I didn't respond to Derek's email. Didn't see the point. Anything I said would just fuel more anger. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove out to my father's property. It was late afternoon when I arrived. The light was slanting through the trees, golden and soft. I walked the property line again, following the old surveyor stakes, breathing in the smell of pine and earth. My father had loved this place, talked about it constantly. Someday, he'd say, someday we'll build something here. He never did. Life got in the way. Work, bills, time. And now it was mine, safe in a trust, protected, useless except as a symbol of what could have been. I sat down on an old stump near the creek and thought about my son, about the little boy who used to help me in the garage, handing me tools, asking questions, learning how things worked. When had that changed? When had he stopped seeing me as a teacher and started seeing me as an obstacle? Or had I stopped teaching and started judging? These weren't questions with easy answers. My phone buzzed. Text message from Janet. You okay? I typed back, yeah, just thinking. Come home soon. On my way. I stood up and walked back to my truck, but before I left, I looked at that property one more time, at the trees and the creek and the sagging barn. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe I was holding on to something for sentimental reasons that didn't make practical sense. But it was mine. And nobody was going to manipulate me into giving it up. That had to count for something. I drove home as the sun set behind me, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Beautiful and temporary, like everything else. When I got home, Janet had dinner ready. Chicken and vegetables, simple food, good food. We ate in comfortable silence. Then she cleared the plates and sat back down. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay. I got a call today, from a reporter. She's writing a follow-up story about TechTrack and Pirelli. She wanted to know if we'd comment. What did you say? I said no comment, but she was persistent. Asked if we knew about the technology issues. Asked if Derek had tried to pressure us into selling property. Asked if we'd considered legal action. What did you tell her? I told her the truth, that Derek had approached us about selling, that we declined, that we discovered some concerning information about his business partners and decided to protect our assets. That's going to make Derek look worse. I know. But it's also going to protect us. If this thing gets bigger, if there are criminal charges or civil suits, we need to be on record as victims, not accomplices. She was right. But it still felt like another twist of the knife. How much worse can it get for him? I asked. A lot worse. If Pirelli tries to shift blame onto Derek to save himself. If investors sue individually. If the technology misappropriation becomes a criminal matter instead of just civil. He could go to prison. He could, if it's bad enough. I thought about that. About my son in prison. Orange jumpsuit, visiting hours, collect calls. I don't want that, I said. Neither do I. But at this point, it's out of our hands. Was it, though? We'd started this. We'd sent those anonymous emails. We'd pushed Derek to investigate Pirelli. We'd created the conditions for everything to fall apart. But we hadn't committed fraud. We hadn't misrepresented technology. We hadn't promised investors something that didn't exist. Derek and Pirelli had done that on their own. We just turned on the lights. Still, looking at Janet across the table, seeing the worry in her eyes beneath the satisfaction, I wondered if we'd won or just survived, and whether there was a difference. The first hearing was on a Tuesday. I didn't plan to go. Didn't want to. But Janet thought we should. Just to observe, she said, to understand where things stand. So we went. The courthouse was downtown, an old building with marble floors and high ceilings that echoed. We sat in the back of the courtroom and watched as lawyers argued motions and judges made rulings I barely understood. Derek was there, sitting at a table with his lawyer, a young guy who looked fresh out of law school and probably was. Derek looked thin, worn down. His suit didn't fit right, like he'd lost weight and hadn't had time to get it tailored. He saw us. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I couldn't read his expression. Anger, maybe, or resignation. The hearing was about discovery. Pirelli's lawyers wanted access to Derek's personal communications. Derek's lawyer was arguing it was too broad. The judge wasn't impressed with either side. "I'm going to allow limited discovery," she said. "Emails and documents related to technology development and investor communications, 6 months prior to the investigation. Anything else requires a separate motion." Both sides grumbled. The judge banged her gavel. As we left the courtroom, Derek intercepted us in the hallway. "Why are you here?" he asked. "We wanted to see how you were doing," Janet said. "How I'm doing? I'm fighting to stay out of prison while my business partner throws me under the bus. That's how I'm doing." "Are the charges that serious?" I asked. "They could be. If Vince convinces the prosecutor I was part of the fraud, that I knew about the fake demos and the misleading investor presentations." "Were you?" "No, I told you, I didn't know." "Then you'll be fine." He laughed. "Yeah, because the justice system is so reliable, because innocent people never go to jail." "Derek, don't. Just don't. You got what you wanted. I'm destroyed. Congratulations." He walked away before we could respond. Janet took my arm as we left the courthouse. "That was hard," she said. "Yeah." "You think he's telling the truth? That he didn't know about the fraud?" "I think he knew something was wrong. I think he chose not to look too closely because he wanted it to work. There's a difference between active fraud and willful ignorance, but legally, maybe not a big enough difference." We drove home in silence. I kept seeing Derek's face, the way his suit hung on him, the way his hands shook slightly when he held his briefcase. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. I went down to the basement and stood at my workbench, looking at all my tools. Tools for building, tools for fixing, tools for taking things apart. I'd taken my son apart, piece by piece, methodically, and now he was scattered across a courtroom floor while lawyers fought over the pieces. Janet found me there around 2 a.m. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Not really." "Having regrets?" "Complicated thoughts?" She smiled slightly. "That's my line." "You were right. This is more complicated than I thought it would be." Revenge usually is. Is that what this was? Revenge? What else would you call it? I thought about it. Thought about the tracker, the manipulation, the betrayal. "Justice," I said finally. "Justice is what we call revenge when we want to feel good about it." She wasn't wrong. "So what now?" I asked. "Now, we live with what we've done. We move forward. We don't apologize because we weren't wrong to protect ourselves, but we also don't pretend it wasn't brutal." "That's very balanced of you." I'm trying. Some days are easier than others. She kissed my forehead and went back upstairs. I stayed in the basement for another hour, thinking about my son, about tools and engines and how sometimes things break beyond repair. The next morning, I got a call from Robert Kemp. "Tom, we need to talk." "About what?" "About Derek. His lawyer contacted me. They want to discuss a settlement with Meridian Heights. But there's a complication." "What complication?" "The settlement requires Derek to secure the property you own. If he can deliver it, Meridian will drop their civil suit and help cover his legal fees. If he can't, they're going to pursue damages that will bankrupt him completely." I felt cold anger flood through me. "So, they're still trying to get my land?" "Through Derek, yes. It's leverage. They know he's desperate." "What happens if I say no?" "Then Derek loses everything. His assets, his future earnings, everything. He'll be in debt for the rest of his life. And if I say yes, then you bail him out. You give up your property to save your son." I sat there holding the phone, feeling the weight of that choice. "What would you do?" I asked. "I can't tell you that. It's too personal. But I can tell you the legal reality. Derek put himself in this position. You didn't. You have no legal obligation to save him. But I have a moral one. Do you? He tried to manipulate you. He planted a tracker on your vehicle. He bad-mouthed you to his girlfriend. He promised your property to people without your consent. At what point does moral obligation end?" "I don't know." "Well, you've got 48 hours to figure it out. That's the deadline for the settlement." I hung up and sat there staring at nothing. Janet came in from the garden. "Who was that?" I told her. "Everything. The settlement, the deadline, the choice." She sat down heavily. "That's diabolical," she said. "It's business. It's extortion. It's both." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. You're trying to decide if you can live with it." She was right. I knew what I was going to do, had known from the moment Robert explained the situation. But I was trying to find a way to make peace with it. I couldn't. "I'm going to say no," I said finally. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. If I give in now, it doesn't end. There will always be one more thing. One more crisis. One more reason I have to sacrifice what's mine to fix his problems. He'll hate you. He already hates me. This will make it permanent." "I know." She nodded slowly. "Okay, then we say no." I called Robert back. "I'm declining," I said. "Derek can't have the property." "You're certain?" "I'm certain. I'll inform his attorney. Tell him I'm sorry it came to this." "I will. But Tom, you're making the right choice. Tough, but right." I wasn't sure I believed him, but I was sure I believed myself. That night Derek called, last time from his old number, probably got it turned back on somehow. "I heard," he said. His voice was flat, empty. "I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You finally get to watch me lose everything. Must be satisfying." "It's not. Bullshit. You've been working toward this since you found that tracker. Everything you've done has been about destroying me. Everything I've done has been about protecting myself. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Derek, you put me in this position. You made choices that led here. I didn't force you to work with criminals. I didn't force you to promise my property to people. I didn't force you to lie and manipulate. You did that. And you did nothing to stop it. You watched it happen. You encouraged it. You sent those anonymous emails." I paused. "You figured that out." "Of course I figured it out. Mom's the only person I know who would do that kind of research. Who would find those specific articles? You think I don't know how you operate? If you knew, why didn't you say something earlier?" "Because I kept thinking maybe you'd help me. Maybe at the last second, you'd be my father instead of my enemy." "I am your father. That's why I'm not enabling you." He laughed, cold and bitter. "Keep telling yourself that. Keep pretending this is about tough love, or teaching me a lesson, but we both know the truth. What truth? That you couldn't stand to see me succeed. That watching me build something bigger than you ever did made you feel small, and you'd rather destroy me than live with that feeling. That's not true. Isn't it? Think about it. Really think about it. You're 52 years old. You fixed cars and did safety inspections. Nothing wrong with that, but nothing special either. And then your son starts building a tech company, getting investors, making real money, and suddenly you're looking at yourself wondering what you did with your life. Derek, I'm right and you know it. This whole thing has been about your ego, about putting me back in my place, about making sure I don't exceed you. You're wrong. Am I? Then why did you lock up the property? Why not just sell it to someone else if you really didn't want to help me? Why make it impossible for anyone to use it? He had a point. I'd locked it up not just to protect it, but to make sure Derek couldn't benefit from it, even indirectly. Because I didn't want you to win, I said finally, honest, brutal. There it is, the truth, finally. You tried to manipulate me. You planted a tracker on my truck like I was a criminal. You mocked my life. You called us pathetic. You don't get to win after that. And you don't get to call this justice. This is revenge, pure and simple. And when I'm gone, when I'm bankrupt and broken and living under a bridge somewhere, you're going to have to live with the fact that you chose that. You chose to destroy your son rather than help him. I chose to protect myself rather than enable you. There's a difference. Not to me. He hung up. Janet appeared in the doorway. I heard most of that, she said. Was he right? About what? About my ego. About me wanting to keep him down. She thought about it. Really thought about it. A little bit, she said finally. I think there's some truth there, but not the whole truth. I think you're protecting yourself and punishing him, and maybe, feeling some satisfaction that he didn't succeed at your expense. All of that can be true at the same time. So I'm not the good guy. No. But you're not the bad guy either. You're just human, complicated and flawed and doing the best you can in a shitty situation. That's not very comforting. It's not meant to be. It's just true. She left me alone after that. I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about everything Derek had said, about ego and revenge and truth. Maybe he was right. Maybe I did feel threatened by his success. Maybe I had taken satisfaction in watching him fail. But he'd also tried to steal from me, to manipulate me, to treat me like an obstacle instead of a person. So maybe we were both right. Maybe we'd both failed each other in fundamental ways. And maybe that was the real tragedy. Not that I'd destroyed him, but that we'd destroyed each other. The settlement deadline came and went. Derek didn't secure the property, obviously. Meridian Heights filed their lawsuit. Derek's lawyers scrambled to mount a defense with basically no resources. I watched it happen from a distance, tracking updates through news articles and legal filings that Robert Kemp sent me. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash. Inevitable, horrible, impossible to look away from. 3 weeks after the deadline, I got a certified letter, official, legal. It was from Meridian Heights attorneys. They were notifying me that I might be called as a witness in their civil case against Derek. They wanted to depose me about the property discussions and Derek's representations to them. I called Robert immediately. They can't do that, I said. I wasn't part of any agreement. They can depose you as a fact witness. You don't have to testify against Derek, but you do have to answer questions truthfully about what happened. What if I refuse? Then you'll be held in contempt. Tom, you need to cooperate, but carefully. Get your own attorney for the deposition. Don't say anything beyond what's directly asked. Don't volunteer information. This feels like they're using me to hurt Derek. They are. That's exactly what they're doing. They know your testimony will be damaging because it establishes that Derek promised something he couldn't deliver. It proves fraud. So, I helped them destroy my son. You tell the truth. What they do with it isn't your responsibility. But it felt like my responsibility. The deposition was scheduled for 2 weeks out. I spent those weeks preparing with my attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Hong, who specialized in civil litigation. She drilled me on how to answer questions, how to be truthful but not expansive, how to stay calm. Janet came with me to the deposition. It was held in a conference room at the Meridian Heights attorney's office. Expensive building, nice views. The kind of place that charged $500 an hour just to sit in the waiting room. Derek was there with his attorney. We didn't speak, didn't even make eye contact. Just sat on opposite sides of the room while lawyers prepared their materials. The deposition took 4 hours. Question after question about the property, about Derek's visits, about the tracker, about the conversations. Every detail extracted and recorded by a court reporter who typed faster than seemed humanly possible. Did Derek Brennan tell you he had a buyer for the property? The Meridian attorney asked. He mentioned a development company. Did he tell you he could deliver the property to them? He asked if I would consider selling. But did he represent that he had the authority to make that commitment? I hesitated. This was the knife edge, the place where my answer could either protect Derek or condemn him. He implied it, I said finally. But he never explicitly stated it. The attorney pounced. How did he imply it? By the way he talked about the deal, by his confidence, by his timeline. Did you believe, based on his implications, that he had some control over the property? No, I always knew it was mine to decide. But Derek Brennan led my clients to believe he could deliver the property, correct? I don't know what he told your clients. But he told you he needed the property for a business deal, correct? Yes. And he put pressure on you to sell quickly, correct? He expressed urgency. And when you refused, his business fell apart, correct? Patricia cut in. Objection, speculation. Mr. Brennan can't testify to the internal operations of Derek's business. The Meridian attorney smiled. I'll rephrase. Mr. Brennan, are you aware that your refusal to sell the property resulted in the termination of the development deal? I'm aware that without the property, the deal couldn't proceed. And you chose not to sell despite knowing it would harm your son's business interests, correct? I chose to protect my assets, yes. Even knowing it would destroy your son's career. Patricia objected again, but the damage was done. The attorney had gotten what he wanted, me admitting that I'd prioritized my property over Derek's career. After the deposition ended, Derek left immediately, didn't even wait for the elevator, just took the stairs. Janet and I rode down in silence. In the parking garage, she finally spoke. That was brutal. Yeah. You okay? No. We drove home. I spent the evening sitting in the basement, staring at my workbench, not working on anything, just sitting. Around midnight, Janet came down with 2 beers. You've been down here for 4 hours, she said. I'm thinking. About? About whether I'm a monster. She sat on her stool. You're not a monster. I just helped Meridian Heights prove their case against Derek. I gave them ammunition to destroy him financially. You told the truth, that's all. The truth is a weapon. I knew it would hurt him, and I said it anyway. What was the alternative? Lie under oath? Commit perjury to protect him? Maybe. She was quiet for a moment. Then, honey, Derek put you in that room. Derek made promises he couldn't keep. Derek built his business on lies. You didn't create this situation. You're just living in it. That doesn't make me feel better. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to be true. I drank my beer. She drank hers. We sat in the fluorescent light and the silence. What happens next? I asked. Next, the lawsuit proceeds. Meridian uses your testimony. Derek's attorney tries to minimize the damage. A judge or jury decides. And Derek probably loses. How bad? Bad. He'll be ordered to pay damages he can't afford. His credit will be destroyed. He'll probably have to declare bankruptcy, and depending on the criminal investigation, he might still face charges. All because he wanted my land. All because he tried to take what wasn't his to take. She was right. I knew she was right. But sitting there in that basement, surrounded by tools and memories, I felt the weight of it. The finality. I'd won. I'd protected myself. I'd prevented Derek from manipulating me. But I'd also watched my son destroy himself, and I'd helped push him over the edge. Victory, justice, revenge. It all felt the same in the end. Empty. "Janet," I said. "Yeah?" "When this is over, when the lawsuits are settled and the investigations are done and Derek's life is in ruins, what then? Do we just go on with our lives? Pretend we don't have a son?" "I don't know. Because I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can live with that." "Then we figure it out when the time comes. But Tom? Right now, we have to see this through. We can't stop halfway. We can't suddenly develop compassion and save him after we've already pushed him this far. That's not mercy. That's just torture." She was right again. Brutally, painfully right. We'd started this. We had to finish it. 2 weeks later, Derek's attorney called me directly. Not Robert. Not Patricia. Derek's attorney. "Mr. Brennan, this is James Sullivan. I represent your son. I know who you are. I'm calling because I need your help. Not for the lawsuit. That's probably lost already. But for the criminal investigation. The prosecutor is deciding whether to file charges, and your son's testimony during the deposition hurt him badly." I told the truth. "I know, and I'm not asking you to lie, but I am asking you to provide context, a character witness statement, something that shows Derek isn't a criminal, just someone who made bad business decisions." "Why would I do that?" "Because he's your son, because prison would destroy him, because you still have a chance to do the right thing." I almost hung up. Almost. But something stopped me. What would this statement say? Just the truth, that Derek was ambitious, that he wanted to succeed, that he made mistakes but didn't have criminal intent, that he's not a threat to society. I need to think about it. "Mr. Brennan, the prosecutor is making her decision this week. If you're going to help, it has to be now." I hung up. Janet was in the kitchen when I came upstairs. "Derek's lawyer called," I said. I told her about the conversation, about the character witness statement, about the criminal charges. She listened without interrupting. Then, "What do you want to do?" "I want to make this whole thing go away. I want to rewind 6 months and not find that tracker and not start this war." "But you can't." "But I can't." "So what can you do?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "I can tell the truth," I said finally. "One more time. I can tell the prosecutor that Derek wasn't a criminal, that he was reckless and desperate and made terrible choices, but he wasn't malicious. You think that'll help?" "I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But at least I'll know I tried to stop this before it went too far." She nodded. "Then do it." I called Sullivan back and told him I'd provide a statement. He sent over a draft that night. I rewrote most of it. His version was too defensive, too much lawyer speak. Mine was simpler, more honest. I sent it to the prosecutor's office the next morning. Then I waited. A week later, I got a call from Sullivan again. "The prosecutor declined to file criminal charges," he said. I felt something in my chest unclench. "Why?" "She said there wasn't enough evidence to prove criminal intent. Your statement helped. It gave her a way to close the case without looking weak." "So Derek's in the clear? Criminally?" "Yes. He'll still lose the civil case. He'll still be financially ruined. But he won't go to prison." After Sullivan hung up, I sat there for a long time. I'd saved Derek from prison, but I'd also helped destroy everything else in his life. Was that mercy? Or just a different kind of cruelty? I didn't know. and I wasn't sure I wanted to find out.